Welcome to the Manufacturing Matters podcast with the Council of Industry. Join us as we bring you inspiring stories, interviews, and insights from across the Hudson Valley that will revolutionize the way you think about manufacturing. This podcast is proudly sponsored by PKF O'Connor Davies, a leading accounting and advisory firm dedicated to helping businesses thrive in the manufacturing sector. With their industry knowledge and strategic guidance, PKF O'Connor Davies ensures that manufacturers have the financial insights and support they need to achieve success.
Gordon Burdis, president of James Taylor Manufacturing. Welcome to the Council of Industry podcast.
Thank you. Appreciate it, guys.
So, James Taylor Manufacturing, tell our listeners a little bit about the company.
So we were incorporated in Poughkeepsie in 1911. So we've been here a long time. Our mainstay product is industrial assembly and clamping equipment for the woodworking industry. And we've been manufacturing that here in Poughkeepsie since 1911. And it's gone from hand clamps on up to fully automated, mass producing big machines, and has even in the last sort of 20 years diversified into lumber optimization equipment and sort of nesting and stacking equipment for the flooring industry. So,
Ben, about how many people do you have there?
We have 45 employees and about 25 people in the factory and about 20 who either live abroad and sell for us or work in the office in various roles.
So just full disclosure, James L. Taylor Manufacturing is one of the oldest continuous running manufacturing member of the Council of Industry. We're very proud of that. And you're, it's honestly, the history is amazing. So talk a little bit about those first products. I think it's hard to imagine on, and audio only here, but talk about some of those clamps. Are these like the clamps you would see in your wood shop type things, like C-clamps, that kind of stuff?
Sure. So long answer to your question. So it started that way. And then from there, it kind of moved into a more industrial setting. So if you picture your kitchen or your dining room or your living room, there are components that are probably 2 foot wide by 3 foot long that have either been painted or stained that are ultimately multiple pieces of wood.
Like kitchen cabinets, furniture.
Yeah, yep.
Okay.
Cabinet doors, furniture, tabletops, all that stuff. So our machinery will take multiple pieces of wood and glue them together and create that larger piece that ultimately ends up in a tabletop or in the center panel of a cabinet door or a drawer box side or something like that. So we work with the manufacturing companies that manufacture kitchens and stairs and drawers and all of that and provide efficient and robust machinery to do that style of business and make money at it.
And that's different than like your small wood shop or a handcrafting place. So you have products for those folks and like kind of that spectrum. I'm trying to picture what these, what that small shop, certainly not the guy that just is, making his own stuff, but
sure. So it, basically little hand clamps are typically used by hobbyists and they're going to make little, sort of homegrown projects, stuff like that out of wood, and they'll go to Lowe's and they'll buy C clamps or they'll buy Bessie clamps or bar clamps is another term of what they're called. We start at the next level up. So we don't typically sell to hobbyists. We will sell, however, to a 1 or 2 person cabinet shop. And most little towns around this country have a 1 or 2 person cabinet shop, if not
cabinets,
right, where they're taking on a kitchen a month. And that's their business. And they need to glue up, 30 center panels for cabinet doors a month. And they're sick and tired of little hand clamps and gluing them up and then lying them around on the floor or stacking them in the corner or whatever. So they buy one of our machines to do that. And then from there, it gets bigger and more automated and more productive. And, some of our largest customers are the largest kitchen cabinet manufacturers in the US, Kraftmade, Master Brand, American Woodmark. And, our machines produce 3,000 cabinet door panels in a shift and they run them for 3 shifts.
Wow.
And, those are, those are the types of companies that produce the mainstream kitchens that you see in the larger distributors and, the kind of Home Depots and Lowe's
back to
yeah,
Lowe's, right? So you're not just buying
exactly.
your C clamp, if you just buy your kitchen there, chances are
That's
it was
right.
made with your equipment.
Yep.
So it's very interesting to me that these machines feel like they're, I've had the pleasure of going through the tour and seeing how they're made and, the vertical integration, we can talk about that. But I think the level of automation and the engineering that goes into them is very impressive. And I guess are you customized working with the manufacturers, or are these off the shelf type products that you sell to them?
Most of the time off the shelf. So we try to standardize different models and different sizes of machines that fit our industry and cover, our hope is 80% of the market in that particular sector. That doesn't mean that any particular kind of standard model doesn't have 30 different configurations that we offer, and we have to figure out how to build them all efficiently and, get them out the door. So a clamp carrier, which is kind of our mainstay product line, what we're known for, which is basically rows of these individual clamps that glue the panels that are in a big rotating machine. We start at 8.5 foot wide on them with only 6 sections, and we go as wide as we've made 2 or 3 that were 24 feet wide, and a couple of machines that were 120 sections, and everything in between, really. And as you get bigger, you have to change specifications on rotation motors and tightening motors and hydraulic systems and all of that. So built into what is kind of a standard product is, like I said, 30 configurations, 50. I have never counted them all up.
All those variations.
Yeah. And so, to touch on the engineering aspect of all of that, I mean, our first clamp carrier was manufactured in 1926. And we're continuously improving it and, adding things to make it more efficient and effective for our customers and more efficient for us to manufacture. So we have an engineering team of 6 here and in a 45 employee company. So it's a pretty big portion of our workforce. And it's just innovation is key to stay ahead of, what the rest of everybody's doing.
Not around 113 years without innovating, that's for sure.
Correct. Yeah, correct. And then, but on top of that, it's okay. We're going through it right now with our clamp carrier. It's a 30 some components or a 30-year-old design. And 30 years ago, we didn't manufacture things the same way as we do now. And so there's efficiencies to gain, and there's different materials that have been developed and different cylinder technology and valve technology and air hose just go on down the list. And so it's a constant, continuous improvement battle that our engineers fight.
I like that description, an ongoing battle.
Mm-hmm.
So the clamp carriers, like that basic design, obviously you've improved it through the years, but that's still a product that you sell, that one from 1926, a version of it still exists out there?
Absolutely. We've actually had a very nice busy year on clamp carriers this year and have 10 in the manufacturing schedule that we need to build over the next 4 or 5 months. So it's a consistent, healthy portion of our overall business.
I think the last thing, when you're listing the equipment that you manufactured and made, I think one of the last ones you mentioned was like a lumber optimizer. Describe that for us.
Sure. So I'll give a little context to begin. So basically, our clamp carriers create what is a glued up panel, like I said, tabletop cabinet door panel or something like that. To get to that component, obviously, all wood starts as a tree. And so you have loggers who cut it down, you have mills who cut it into boards. And then from there, and the boards then get dried. And then from there, you start the kind of what's called secondary processing, which is the machining process from a rough sawn board to a panel or to a stair tread or something like that. And the first process is surfacing the top and the bottom face. And then the next process typically is to cut it to a desired width. And so you're taking a random, pack of lumber that our customers would purchase from a mill, and they need to then cut it down into useful widths that will go into whatever products they make. So our lumber optimization equipment will actually scan the board, and use software to make the best decision for what the customer needs. And they can input a cut list of 5 or 10 or 20 different sizes, depending on what they need. And the machine will automatically read the geometry of the board and the width and the length and say, all right, this is your best solution based on the parameters you put in. And then we've got saws that move to those sizes, and we feed the boards through.
Wow.
So
So
it's
if there
really
are blemishes or something like that, and one side's better than the other, is that's all the factors they put in?
Yeah, so size typically in the first process is one of the key things. As you get to the next process, which is to cut that already, ripped part, so that the process we're talking about here is called ripping of boards. The next process is cross-cutting, and that's where you cross-cut it to length. And that's where you kind of deal with the blemishes and the knots and the cracks, and you try to cut that bad material out of and leave what's otherwise good material to go into your cabinet doors.
That is amazing. Now, a machine like that, it has to be an expensive machine. What would that run me if I want to start my stair tread factory? What would that machine run me?
Well, so you're talking to a salesman here, Harold. So I would say it won't cost you anything, because the amount of lumber it's going to save you will pay for it, right?
Absolutely.
So the beginning, our smallest model in the optimizing side of it is our SKU rip system, and it's going to be 200,000 roughly. And then from there, we're quoting bigger automated systems that have material handling and are integrating with pieces before and pieces after what we manufacture that could go as much as 750,000, something of that nature.
Wow. Okay, still, like you say, pay for it cheap at twice the price and pays for itself in just a matter of months.
Hopefully.
So I mentioned it earlier. You are very vertically integrated. You guys really control all the processes, and for a small company, that's a lot. But talk about why that's important to you and the different things that you do to put together one of your automated machines.
So I guess I'll start with a quick synopsis of how it all works, and then I'll tell you the reasons why. So basically, we bring raw materials in one end of the building, and it either starts as long linear pieces of metal like tubing or flat stock or round bar, and then another main sector of that is sheet metal, and then it runs through our manufacturing system in our factory and comes out the other end as finished material. We have a CNC laser for cutting sheet metal. We have CNC mills and lathes. We have robotic welding. We have hand welders. We powder coat, and then we assemble. And then we build the skids and package everything to make the trip safely wherever it's going around the world. The reason we do that is to have control over our quality and really have a firm understanding of both how the machine goes together so that we can provide top-level customer service, and then also how much it costs us to make that machine. And we work very hard at being as efficient as possible. There's probably less expensive ways for us to buy components and things like that, but we would lose control over, the schedule and keeping our schedule. And then also we would lose control over the quality of those particular components. So, we manufacture everything other than valves, cylinders, and electronics and computers and PLCs and things like that we buy, but we do all of our own metal fabricating, all of our own machining, all of our own finishing, and then on top of that, all of our own programming to give all these automated machines life. And having control over that has set us way ahead of our competitors in terms of being able to not only answer questions for our customers, but also design the software to be easy to use for our customers.
Who are the competition? Is it domestic, international, both?
Yeah, both. We've got a French-Canadian company that competes with us in the clamping side of our business. There's an American company that competes with us on the optimizing equipment. And then there are a couple of European companies that we compete with. The two companies in North America are just slightly bigger than us. They're sort of, 60 or 80 or maybe 100 employees. Okay. The European companies are large conglomerates and are billion-dollar, corporations.
Interesting. Mm-hmm. So, I immediately have my workforce hat on, and I hear all those different tasks and all those different processes.
Mhm.
Do you have folks that are specialized, CNC machinist, and you have a
Mhm.
welder, or are they cross-trained, a combination? Talk about how you have those people, those 25 folks or so in the production side, and how do you keep their skills up, and how do you make sure that each of those processes gets done?
So our strategy has always been to kind of take somebody with a work ethic and initiative and teach them the skills that will make them successful in our system. And our system is similar in lots of ways to others, but there's also things that we do that are the way that we do it, and for lack of a better way of saying it. And so there's always somebody who is classically trained as a CNC machinist has to come in and learn, our way of doing that. And so we've morphed from, 30, 40 years ago, there was lots of jobs that were your classic factory jobs where it was just put a part in, press a button, part comes out, replace the part, press a button.
Mhm.
And we're more reliant on skilled, and I wouldn't necessarily call them specialists because there is a lot of cross training and they can all do lots of things. So that's the wrong kind of flavor, but very skilled, talented, thoughtful people. And we have very few of the, sort of rudimentary put a
Mhm.
part in, take a part out jobs left.
Mhm.
It's all sort of more than that now. And that's all happened since, automation has taken over, and you sort of develop, better ways to do it.
Right. And that's, I mean, since you're selling automated products, you probably are also always looking for ways to automate your own process. Got to be able to see both those opportunities and those options.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So talk a little bit about your engineering team. 6 engineers, that is a lot for a
Hmm.
team of 45 or 50. And there, do you guys do all your own custom programming? I heard you say.
Yes, we do. So I've got 4 full-time dedicated mechanical engineers, and then we've got 2 other gentlemen who also have, I would say management roles that, basically only allow them to engineer for, a portion of their day. But because we take, doing everything ourselves to the max, you've got to have enough people in house to, so innovate a brand new machinery design. Then you've got to, once you have a concept, it goes to a more detailed design where you actually have to put cylinders and valves and things, into it to give it some reality. And then, if it's an automated machine, then you've got to start working on, all right, the control system. Is it going to be a PLC driven control system? Is it going to be a computer based C++ style type of control system that we've developed over the last sort of 5 or 6 years? We've got 6 different software platforms for optimizing equipment that we have to write code for and keep up and upgrade and add features to and troubleshoot and do all that stuff. And once again, it's chasing the highest quality product. If we have intimate knowledge of all of it and we can figure out how to make it better and do it, or make it easier on the surface for our customers, even though it's very complicated behind the scenes, that gives us an advantage when we're going to market with the product. And as I mentioned earlier, all of our competitors are bigger than us, so they've got bigger engineering budgets and more people doing it. And so we just we've got to figure out our edge where we can get it. And I think that's having that much control and not farming out software and taking on the fixed costs of a larger engineering team, and honestly, and engineers that also program. I mean,
Right.
I don't have a dedicated programmer. I have mechanical engineers who learned how to program,
Mm.
and that gives them an advantage over just a straight programmer in the
That is,
machinery world.
yeah,
Not,
I would think so.
in
So
other
that's,
ways, not.
yeah, but that is a big advantage. So you said you're a salesman and you have folks all around the world doing sales. What about on the technical side of that? Are they folks who have worked, on the factory side, or and are familiar with the products, or are they folks that are like professional salespeople?
They would be more on the technical side than they are
Okay.
professional salespeople. So the gentleman who lives in North Carolina worked in Poughkeepsie for 20 years before moving there, and he made his way all the way up through the factory. And the gentleman who lives in California was our plant manager for 20 years here in Poughkeepsie. So he obviously knows his way around.
Yeah.
Yep. And then my regional manager, who's based out of Poughkeepsie, started in our shipping department and worked his way up.
Wow.
So really the trajectory for most people, including myself, to be perfectly honest, is you start in the factory and you learn where it all begins and you gather a skill set as you come along, and you do almost everything. I mean, about the only thing I didn't do was learn how to, freehand weld. I ran the robots, I ran cutoff, I ran lathes, mills, assembled machines. So you make your way through the factory, and then for anybody who's going to be sort of outside of the factory, a very common spot to end up for a couple of years is service. And so you're traveling and you're installing machines, learning how our machines go into the field and the application of them, for our customers. And then whoever wants to or takes to the whole selling process, we try to work into the sales team. So the gentleman in Texas who didn't start in Poughkeepsie, he's my one sort of deviation from that plan. He owned a cabinet shop for 15 years. So he already has the application. And for the first year, went on installations. Every machine going to his territory, he went and did the installation with the technician. And now he does some of his own. And so that's how he's built, he kind of has built his skill set and his sort of intimate tailor knowledge.
Interesting. So you've worked everywhere in Florida. You have a family tie to the business. Is that correct?
I do.
Okay.
Yep. Second generation.
Second generation. Okay. So you have all that hands-on, but was this your plan in high school? I'm going to go work for the company, or was that something that came later?
It was always in my plan. So first summer's home from college, and we had a long winter break home from college. I worked in the factory, save for one summer. And then the rule with my mom and dad was that, you can end up in Poughkeepsie and working at the company, and that's all great, but you got to go do something else first. Okay. And so the first thing that I did after college was I moved to England for just over a year, and I coached and played lacrosse. And so I got out of the country, totally different experience, and really had a wonderful time doing it, but got to see something totally different before being enveloped into the family business.
Yeah. I'm curious. So, playing lacrosse, lacrosse is not a native sport to England, but from a coaching standpoint, how did that prepare you for your role as president and this leadership role? You see the similarities?
For sure. I mean, so my role over there was coaching, was sort of during the week organizing, at local elementary schools, kind of a gym class style, basically hour-long sports period and I would travel around from school to school. And so, having 30 kids running around and chaos like that, there's probably lessons learned in that. But I think the role that really
running around with sticks, I think you have to be clear.
Yes. Yeah.
Armed.
Metal sticks and balls in the sticks that they can throw at you. It was organized chaos. But really, at the athletic club that I was a part of, I was in charge of organizing their whole youth program. And so for that particular year, so there was a U12 team, a U14 team, and a U16 team, and you needed to get volunteers to help out and coach. And so all of a sudden now you're in this role of, all right, here's how I kind of want this program it was an existing program. So it was kind of, here's how I want to improve this program. And how do you persuade the parents and the people who volunteer their time to do it? And that's an awful lot like negotiating with an employee and getting a distributor to focus on your machinery more than something else. And
yeah, I got to think it's easier doing your job because you're at least paying the folks that are working on the floor. There's a little added benefit. You got to ask them to volunteer.
I was being nice to the parents in England.
Fair enough.
Yeah,
Fair enough. That's fun. So you came back. Where'd you go to school?
I went to Union College in Schenectady.
No, it makes sense. Played lacrosse, I assume.
Yep. I played lacrosse there. Yep.
Okay. And then and you were in England for how long? And then you came back to the company and did a
So,
sales role. Is that right?
right. So England for a year. And then actually, it was bad timing for when I came home because it was sort of the bottom of the recession.
Ah,
So we weren't hiring anybody. And I had to work basically, I was doing landscaping for 6 or 8 months prior to business coming back to a point where we could afford to hire our first employee back after the recession. And that was me.
hmm.
And yeah, we scaled down to 25 people in the company, and it was 45 in
Yeah. And
2006.
yeah, I was going to say, to be clear, we're talking back
Yep.
2008, 2009 recession, not
2010.
pandemic,
Yep.
because you were pretty busy during
Correct.
the pandemic.
We were booming during the pandemic. Yep. Not a recession for us. And so then, yeah, so landscaping when I came home, and then I got hired back and I worked in the factory, and I probably moved into more of an assembly role as my first role back because I'd already done my sort of tour through the machine shop and cut off and welding and all of that when I was working the summers. And then soon thereafter, for about a year in assembly, I became a service technician and I started traveling and installing machines. And then our business had come back to a point where we needed a salesman on the West Coast. And so I basically talked my dad into giving me that territory that no one was really looking after, and started traveling, to and from, the Salt Lake City and Portland and Seattle and LA and places like that, and trying to get business.
Hmm.
And all along the way, installing all my own machines and
Right.
helping out
And
best I could that way.
became president in what year?
3.5 years ago.
That's great.
Yeah.
So, looking ahead, obviously, you had a few years now under your belt as president. You're very familiar with the company, very familiar with the industry. What's next for James L. Taylor?
So it's actually interesting timing that we're having this conversation because we actually just purchased a business in Portland, Oregon, and it's a 15 employee, 30,000 square foot manufacturing machinery. They manufacture machinery that complements our optimizing equipment really nicely. And so that's got my undivided attention for the next chapter.
Wow.
So it's just interesting timing that's all happening now. So that's our growth plan, really. I mean, they have a very nice product line that has been undersold for decades. And I'm going to challenge my sales team with, let's figure out how to sell this equipment around the country and really make their presence known. And that'll force me to figure out how to turn probably 15 employees out there into 45 like it is here.
Are you going to rebrand that with your brand, or are you going to keep their nameplate?
We're going to keep their name for a portion of what they do, which is these very large automated systems. And the company's name is Ultimizers. And so the new product is going to be Ultimizers Systems. And then I'm going to develop a few standard products that are going to be marketed under the Cameron line. And they'll still manufacture them out in Oregon, but they're the right fit for our Cameron Taylor distribution network to sell and do a good job at. And I suppose this is probably a good time. So Taylor is kind of is the overall name of the company, but we have two other brand names that go along with it, which is Cameron Automation and JLT Clamps for everybody who's listening. And the Cameron line is our optimizing equipment. And so we will sell some of their equipment under that brand. And it's more standardized offering.
Yeah, definitely feels like one of those things you're going to have to just see how that goes. Right?
Definitely.
And see how it goes. That sounds like a great opportunity. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
So really, really enjoyed talking to you, Gordon. Any final thoughts? Anything we forgot to share?
No, I think we covered a lot.
Yeah, and honestly, we covered a lot, and there's plenty more, to be honest, with our listeners out there. There's a rich history, and there's a lot of innovation that's happened there, and some great personalities as well. But we'll save that for another time. So Gordon Burdis, president of James L. Taylor Manufacturing, thank you for being on the Council of Industry podcast.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Manufacturing Matters, brought to you by the Council of Industry and sponsored by PKF O'Connor Davies, accountants and advisors who understand the unique challenges and opportunities in the manufacturing sector. We hope you gained valuable insights and inspiration from today's discussion. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe to our podcast and leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform.